All letting agents do is go to the property once a quarter and rake in the hard profits that we as landlords accumulate. So why would you use one in the first place? Okay, I'm kidding a little bit. So it really does depend on what you value more, your time or your money. So if money is your key focus right now, then it's not going to be worthwhile. No, just don't use a letting agent. There you go, video done. No, joking. So the reason why it doesn't really make sense from a financial point of view, at least initially, is first of all, so they're going to charge you for tenant finding fees, which might be 300 plus VAT to 350. We typically get them a little bit cheaper, but you're going to end up paying that. Then you've got your management fee. Let's say that's 10% all in, which is quite huge. If you think you've got a rental of £700 a month, and then you're getting 10% on that, that's £70 a month, but you're only making 250 quid profit. It's quite a sizable chunk of that profit is going to the letting agent. And then all they're really doing is quarterly checks, right, of the property, or they should be, I should say. So all of that ends up adding up. And actually, if you are focused just on the money, then there's probably no point having them purely from a financial point of view. But from a time perspective, it's completely different. So first of all, let's just really calibrate on what a letting agent actually does. Typically, they are broken down into 3 service levels. The first service level is let only. Let only is when they will go to the property, they will assess it, they'll do a market appraisal, they'll produce a report to you, they'll go out and get an idea of tenant types and who's going in, they'll market the property, get it let out, do the EPC or arrange the EPC for you. They will get the tenant in and vetted, the right to let guide, checking bank accounts, doing reference checks, get the AST signed, get it all compliant for you, and then hand over for you. For a lot of people, this might actually make sense. And normally what they charge you is between 4 and 6 weeks worth of rent. So a fairly hefty upfront fee, but then everything else is taken care of for you. Then you've got the part managed method. And what this is the pre-mentioned agreements and service levels, but also what they'll do is they will collect and provide the security around and then return security deposits, which is a legal requirement in the UK. They will end up making sure that rent is paid on time, and they'll make sure all the vetting checks on an ongoing basis are done for you. The fully managed service, they do everything that I've gone through today, but they'll also do everything from a compliance point of view, like your EICRs, your electrical certificates, your CP12s, which is your gas safety certificates. They'll make sure everything that is sorted on a monthly basis. They will go to court on your behalf if a tenant isn't paying, etc., etc. It's just absolutely hands-free. So those are the 3 service levels. So you might be thinking, what one should I go for? So this is really going to depend on what you actually want to pay for in the first place, because fees do range quite a lot. I've heard of letting fees up to 15% on a boring vanilla buy-to-let, which is, in my opinion, just outrageous. Around the 10% mark is pretty solid. You do have some online agencies that end up charging like 5-6%, but my experience personally of the service levels is actually quite poor. So it's not something I would personally be looking at. And if you are looking at HMO, house of multiple occupancy, or serviced accommodation, personally, I 100% would get that headache out of your head. But that's going to be between 15 all the way up to 20% management fees on serviced accommodation, which is pretty huge. So what are the pros of using a letting agent? Well, first of all, I really value my time, and even the chasing the rent once a month, or just making sure something's come through. Yes, that is a huge amount of my profit margin, but my time is definitely worth more than 70 quid a month for whatever piece of compliance that I need to look at. And so from my point of view, I value time more than anything in the world. I've got 168 hours in a week, a load more in the year, and maybe only 80 years to live. Why would I want to spend it doing something that is outside of the scope of my career path? So for me, time is the most valuable asset, and I don't really want much to do with it. Number 2, which most people don't think about, is the value that a good letting agent can bring you. you. See, a letting agent not only can manage your stuff, but they also have access to hundreds and hundreds of buy-to-let landlords, which sometimes they need to sell. So what I like doing is emailing every now and then saying, hey, just wanted to touch base. I'm actually one of your clients. You rent out and manage a few of my properties, and I'm wondering if there's anyone on your books that is looking to sell right now, because I'd like to buy more with you managing the properties. It's been a really great source of investment properties that you can accumulate to. And number 3, compliance. There are over 100 laws with renting out on a buy-to-let basis. That is a lot of compliance that most of us don't even know about, which, by the way, if you get wrong, you can go all the way up to getting prison time. And so it's a really big deal. And I don't know about you, I just don't have the time, interest, or inclination to get involved in that level of compliance. So for me, the pros are a pretty big no-brainer. But what are the downsides? So there's 3 obvious downsides that I can think about. Number 1 is you're paying for the service. I don't know if that is a negative, but naturally it will impact your profit margins probably by about 20% of your profit, because it's 10% of the overall, which impacts by 20-25%. So that's definitely a downside that you definitely want to be thinking about and factoring in. The second thing is lack of control. Now, for me, I'm actually a bit of a macro manager rather than a micro manager. What that means is I like to be really sort of in the grind, if you like, of everything. Know that the person is in the grind with everything, so then I don't need to get involved, and then they can just report out. And that's the way I really like managing. And it's the same with my properties. I like to know that I've got the best people doing all of these checks really on it, and then they just feed back and I keep out of it as much as possible. But there is a lack of control. What about the tenant that's going to go into your house? What's their background? What do they do? What's their job? Have they got kids? Have they got dogs? How does it impact? Now, there's laws that need to be followed, but sometimes you just get a vibe from somebody, don't you? And when it's not your property, i.e. the letting agent, it's not their property. So do they care as much as you who owns it? Almost definitely not. That doesn't mean they're not going to do a great job though. Number 3, when you advertise your own property, you've got to sell your property. Pretty obvious, right? And the reason I'm getting at that is if you're a letting agent that's got hundreds of properties on your books right now, first of all, congratulations. But what does that mean? If a tenant's viewing this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, what one as a letting agent do you want them to go for? You don't care. You just don't care. Okay, and so the thing is, the letting agent's allegiance isn't to you, it's to all of their landlords. And so naturally, they will likely not prioritize your property, which is why people that self-manage tend to have a higher occupancy rate. So they're the pros and cons. What would I do? I would get a letting agent. And the reason is I like focusing on active being active and passive being passive. What the hell does that mean, Jamie? What it means is I like making money. And the way I like making money is by exchanging my value time in return for money. So I love doing these videos, which is a great return on my time and a great return on my investment. How's it a great return on my time? Because I'm doing content that I get asked questions on this hundreds of times, so I can direct them to this. And also, over time, not much granted, YouTube will end up paying some money for the more people that watch this. Happy days. But I like my active being active, and active income is a lot faster. And then passive income, I like to be really passive. Why would I put my money in something? Let's say I've got 100 grand in a property, I can get reliably 7%, that's from cash flow. Take into account of capital growth, we're probably talking 15% a year. Amazing, right? Well, yes, that is from a passive investment, an insane return. But actually, from this side, if I put 100,000 into one of my businesses from marketing point of view, and let's assume I could facilitate it, I'd probably make about $1 million back from that. So that's a 1000% return. Insane, right? Not really, that's pretty standard, to be honest. It's the facilitation that's difficult and hard keeping people happy on that. So keeping stuff active and keeping things passive. There are pros and cons of both, but this isn't about me. This is about you. So let me know in the comments, if you do have property, do you manage and why? Or do you self-manage and why? Let me know, because I'm interested in your point of view. If you did get value on this video and you want more around the lettings type of thing, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe and the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.